In today's podcast, you'll learn some useful travel expressions that you can use in your hotel, in a restaurant, at the tourist office, and when you go shopping. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello and welcome, especially if you're a first-time listener to the podcast. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with more than 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you doing, mate? How are things?
I'm feeling pretty good, although this hot weather is tiring. We're in Valencia, on the Mediterranean coast of Spain, as listeners who are regular listeners know, and it's hot and humid in the summer. It can be tiring, can't it, Craig?
It can. It's hot, it's humid, and it's full of tourists. Now, we know we do have some listeners in the southern hemisphere who will be experiencing different weather and maybe not thinking of holidays. But because we are in the middle of holiday season, we thought we'd do an episode to help you with some travel phrases. We've spoken about this topic before, haven't we?
We have in several episodes, and we will probably talk about it again because it's a very important topic. But if you go back to, for example, episode 490, that was how to plan a holiday, specifically how to plan one. So that was useful vocabulary and advice before you go on a trip. That's episode 490. There's a link in the show notes. Just type in www.inglespodcast.com/ and then you put the number of the episode. So 490, put 490, and you'll go to the episode. But Craig, I think we had other episodes about holidays as well.
Yes, if you want holiday and travel vocabulary specifically, like words that you can associate with travel and holidays, go to inglespodcast.com/156. And for air travel vocabulary, when you're flying, airports, that kind of thing, go to inglespodcast.com/108. As Reza said, links to those episodes are in the show notes for this episode, which is inglespodcast.com/528. Now, we've divided our expressions for travel in 4 different categories. We've got hotels, tourist office, food, and shopping. Maybe it's an idea as you're listening, if you hear some expressions that you don't know, that you haven't heard before, or that maybe you don't use, they're not in your active vocabulary, make a note of them, put them in your phone or whatever app you use to learn English, and when you go abroad, when you travel, you'll have them ready to use as you're traveling. So you arrive at the hotel. What's the first thing you say to the person working at the reception desk, Reza?
Well, presumably you have a reservation. So you say, I have a reservation for 4 nights in the name of Mr. Craig Wheeland, for example.
And then you show your ID and they confirm the reservation.
And they say, Mr. Craig Whelan of the podcast, the very same. And they say, oh, well, sir, you stay here free. You don't have to pay.
It's going to cost you double. Yeah.
And they say, oh, Rez has come as well. It's like, sorry, we have no more free rooms. Not him. Craig can stay free. He's the guy with the nice voice. But that guy, Reza, I'm sick of his voice. That's what I would say.
So why don't you repeat that phrase after us? I have a reservation for 4 nights in the name of... Another very useful phrase, and most people want this when they get to a hotel, is Wi-Fi. You want the Wi-Fi password. So you could ask, is there Wi-Fi in the room? Because maybe there's Wi-Fi in the lobby of the hotel, in the reception, but no Wi-Fi in your room. Now be careful of the pronunciation of that word Wi-Fi. Okay? Is there Wi-Fi in the room? Or... can I have the Wi-Fi password, please? Can I have the Wi-Fi password, please? Notice the intonation in our voices as we're saying these phrases. Try to copy it and say it the same way that we're saying it. Can I have the Wi-Fi password, please?
By the way, we have some advice for you regarding the Wi-Fi in a hotel or any other shared Wi-Fi. By all means, that means no problem. By all means, use it. But don't use it for important things. Don't access your bank account on the hotel Wi-Fi. Well, I wouldn't. I don't know about you, Craig, but I would not do it.
I did that once and I got hacked. So I definitely have learned my lesson. Be very careful. Secure your Wi-Fi and don't go on the Wi-Fi when you're using any bank websites or anything similar. Credit card details.
You can use your Wi-Fi to listen to our podcast. That should be okay. Yeah, use the Wi-Fi, and then every night before you go to bed, rather than go out and have a walk and see the beautiful sights of the city, why not stay in the hotel room and listen to 3 episodes of our podcast? That's a much better way to spend the evening, isn't it, Craig?
Or walk around the streets and listen to us while you're walking around the streets of the city you're visiting. However, you don't want to get lost. Now, these days, most people have maps on their phone, maybe Google Maps or something similar. I quite like a paper map, and very often hotels have paper maps of the area or the city. So, do you have a map of the area? Is a useful question. Excuse me, do you have a map of the area?
Please don't be that person. I've been that person. We've all been that person who thinks, yeah, but you can get much more detailed maps for your smartphone. Yeah. You know when you really need it, the battery's going to run out in your phone. You just know it. It always happens to me. You want to have it on paper as well. Get that paper map. You'll be glad you have it sometime, believe me.
What's the next expression, Meza?
So even though you have a map, you might like to ask the best way to get to a place, because there could be more than one way, or simply you don't know the way. In that case, say, what's the best way to get to, or how do you get to, for example, how do you get to the supermarket? Or what's the best way to get to the supermarket?
And if you stop somebody in the street to ask those questions, make sure you use excuse me first to be polite. Excuse me, what's the best way to get to, and notice Reza's intonation there. His voice starts very high because that sounds more polite. Excuse me, how do you get to... When you leave your hotel, you check out. That phrasal verb to check out means to leave the hotel. But what time? Sometimes you check out at 12, sometimes you check out at 2, maybe later. It's important to know the checkout time. So a question you could ask, could you tell me the checkout time, please? Could you tell me the checkout time, please? And what I often do is ask if I can leave my bags in the reception area, because maybe I'm flying later or I'm catching a train later and I want to walk around, get some food before I need to travel. So another question, can I leave my bags with you, please?
Craig, I don't know if I told you the anecdote about what happened to me many years ago. I was staying at a guest house, actually. It wasn't a hotel. And I knew the checkout time was 12 o'clock. So I got to the reception kind of area a little bit late, true, at about 12:05. I had to rush to get there. And I said, sorry, I'm a bit late. I'm checking out now. They said, you're late. This was in Spain. 12:05? That's supposed to be 12. That's on time in Spain, isn't it? And I said, yeah, I'm very sorry. Yeah, but I'm going now. They say, no, sorry, you're late. I was like, okay, I'm really sorry. I'm going to go. It's like, no, you have to pay for another night now. And they made me pay.
5 minutes?
Yeah. In Spain, not in Switzerland or Germany.
Which city?
Salamanca.
Well, that's
where I lived, by the way.
That's very strict, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was just because I was a tourist and a foreigner. I spoke even less Spanish then than I do now, and they had my passport. They had me. I couldn't get my passport back till I paid. I said, well, I've got to go. They said, okay, pay for the night then. And so I paid and was very reluctant and then left. And so obviously they would have given the room to somebody else as soon as they could. You know what I would do now? I've learned from my lesson.
Don't let them have your passport.
Well, yeah, you had no choice, yeah? But what I would do now is, because there's a vindictive side to me, I must admit. I'm not proud of it, but there is.
What does vindictive
If
mean?
you're vindictive, that means you like to take revenge, or you like to, pay people back if they've been unpleasant to you. I would have said, okay, that's fair. Here's the money. Yeah. And then I would have taken my passport and said, oh, I'm going to stay tonight then, after all. And not stayed, but not told them that. That's what I would do that. Am I nasty? Am I vindictive? I would have said, okay, I'm staying. Since I've paid, I'm staying. But after I had the passport in my hand, I'd say, yeah, I'm staying. And then I'd make them believe I was staying. I'd try to hide the information as much as I could. Then I'd go. And leave them in doubt whether they could,
Rent the room or not.
I would do that now. Is that vindictive? Would you do such a thing?
Possibly, yeah. Maybe we're getting old and cynical. We're definitely getting old, but maybe the cynicism is getting more obvious. Yeah, I might do that too. A very useful expression is, would you mind? It's very polite, and you can use it for many situations. Just remember that when you use a verb after would you mind, it must be the gerund form of the verb, the ing form. For example, you could say, would you mind sending up some clean towels, please? That's very common. You need more towels. They haven't changed your towels. Your towels are dirty. You ask for more. Would you mind sending up some clean towels, please? So sending is the ing verb. Can you think of more examples with this construction?
What about this? Would you mind booking a taxi for me? Or would you mind giving us some more tea bags? It's very typical to have tea bags in a room in a British hotel. What about, would you mind helping me with this? Or a thing I often have to say, would you, your mind will get working when I tell you this, would you mind sending up some more toilet paper, please? I get through a lot of toilet paper. I don't have irritable bowels or permanent diarrhea or anything like that. I use a lot of toilet paper. What can I say? I get through a lot. And I often have to say, would you mind sending up some more toilet paper, please?
Well, I won't ask what you use it for, but I will ask you, do you travel with tea bags?
Yes.
Me too. I thought you would, yeah.
Not in the UK, but in Spain, yeah. I'm sorry, don't take it badly, Spanish listeners, but I can't trust the quality of Spanish tea bags. So I'm gonna take my own. In the UK, usually not.
No.
But in Spain, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Or any country abroad, just to have some good tea with me. Although I would probably ask, would you mind giving us some more sugar, please? Because I take sugar in my tea. Or would you mind giving us some more milk?
Another useful expression is, could someone help me? For example, could someone help me with my luggage? Or could someone help me with my bags? Or could someone help me with my suitcase? That means help you to take it up to your room.
I thought of another example. Could someone help me open the safe? Has that happened to you? There's a safe in the hotel room. It's locked. You don't know how to open it. Could someone open the safe? Could someone help me with the safe?
We have one more thing, and to be honest, it's something I've rarely said in my life, but it's me. Yeah, other people say it. I have a problem. It's this. Do you have room service?
I've never said that.
Oh, you've never said either?
I've never said that.
See, are you like me and you're terrified about how much it might cost?
Yeah.
And that's why you never say it. Yeah, me too. But, most hotels do have, decent hotels have room service. That means they will take meals and other things to your room. You don't have to leave. But it normally comes at a price. And being the type of person I am, I'm prepared to go and get things myself and save the money. But if you are a person who is more prepared to spend money, you might say, do you have room service?
Especially if you work for a company and they are paying for your room and your business trip, then maybe you need room service. So that would definitely be useful for you. Let's move on from hotels to the tourist office. So we're in a hotel, we've had our cup of tea, we've got extra toilet paper. Now we go outside and start to see the city or wherever we are. I would probably go to the tourist office to get information. Now, we know you can find information on the internet, but it's useful, isn't it, Reza, to talk to somebody who actually knows the area face to face.
Yes, and they might physically be able to show you things. They might be able to literally point at a restaurant, a hotel, some cultural place, which is literally across the road, or you go down that road and turn left and you get there. So it's much easier if someone can physically show you rather than just looking at it on some kind of screen on an electronic device. It can be a lot more useful, in fact.
I've got a question for you, Reza. Have you ever arrived in a city without having booked accommodation?
When I was younger, but I've learned from my mistakes, so not now. What about you?
Once or twice. Yeah, years ago I went to Taiwan, and when I arrived there, we didn't have anywhere to stay. So we went to the tourist office and we said this: we're looking for accommodation, or we're looking for somewhere to stay. And if you want to turn that into a question, do you have a list of accommodation? Or do you have a list of hotels? Or do you have a list of B&Bs? B&B is bed and breakfast. If you're camping, do you have a list of campsites? Or maybe you're traveling on a budget, which means you don't have much money, and you want to stay in a youth hostel or a hostel, a cheaper accommodation option. So again, excuse me, do you have a list of youth hostels?
Sometimes the tourist office will even reserve the accommodation for you, can make your life a lot easier if they do all the talking, particularly if it's in a language that you can't speak. That's a thing to consider. How are you going to do it? So in the tourist office, they normally speak English and other languages, of course. So you could say to them, can I book accommodation here? Or can I book accommodation through you? That means that they will call on your behalf, because perhaps the person who has the accommodation doesn't speak English, and they can do it for you. Also, there's a certain guarantee, because whenever tourist offices approve accommodation, it's going to be safe, secure, and meet some minimum standards.
Now, maybe you got a paper map from your hotel, but maybe they didn't have one, or maybe you're staying at an Airbnb and you don't have a paper map. Well, a tourist office will often have a map of the area or a map of the city. So the question, excuse me, do you have a map of the area? Or, excuse me, do you have a map of the city? A map of the city. Difficult to say. A map of the city. Excuse me, do you have a map of the city?
Another thing is, how do you actually move around the city, particularly if it's a big city? Could be too big to walk. So bus, train, taxi, what? Well, ask of the tourist office. Ask them, what's the best way to get around the city? What's the best way to get around the city? So in general, or as we already said, if you want to get to a specific place, what's the best way to get to, or how do you get to? But to get around means in general, should I take the tram? Should I cycle? Should I walk? That's how you get around the city.
And as we said before, you can find information on the internet, but perhaps the tourist office will have more up-to-date information for you. Maybe they know where the latest exhibitions are or concerts. So another question you could ask, excuse me, are there any exhibitions on at the moment? That preposition on means happening, okay? Are there any exhibitions on at the moment? Or are there any sports events on at the moment in the city? Or are there any concerts or cultural events happening at the moment?
Another important thing is the sites, the things that you go to look at, to see. That's why they're called sites. So you could ask in the tourist office, what sites do you recommend? That's SIGHTS. What sites do you recommend?
And a useful collocation is to go sightseeing. When you go sightseeing, that's when you see the sights of the city or the area where you're staying.
And Craig, I imagine you're similar to me. when you go to a place, particularly if it's an exotic place, somewhere far away that we don't know much about, you'll want to try the local food and local customs, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have a Big Mac every day. So you might say, where can we find authentic food? Or where can we find local food? Or it could also be local arts and crafts or local products. Quite often the tourist office is the best place to tell you that type of information.
Yeah. Also a market. We love going to markets when we travel. So where can we find a local market will be another useful question. So those are expressions for the tourist office. Let's talk now, Reza, about one of your favourite topics, the food. Have you noticed that we pronounce that word differently?
You and I.
Yeah, food.
Yes. And I say food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig's doing it the better way. Yeah.
No, it's not better. It's just a different vowel sound. Yours is shorter.
Mine's shorter. But it should be the longer sound according to the Oxford English Dictionary. Yeah, it should be that longer sound. But I think I mentioned this before in an episode, but to be honest, I can't remember which one. In Belfast, we don't have a long and a short ooh and ooh. They're all short. So you won't hear anyone in Belfast say, oh, what lovely food. They're never going to say it. They're going to say, what lovely food.
Food.
Or they're more likely to say, that was great grub. But if they said the word food, it would be short. We don't have the long sound. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, you don't have much time there. You just want to say it quickly.
Yeah.
So speaking of food, it's obviously very common these days to make reservations on the website of the restaurants. However, maybe you're walking around the city, you're sightseeing, and you see a really nice restaurant and you want to reserve or save a table for later, for the evening perhaps. Then you walk into the restaurant and you say this, excuse me, can I make a reservation? Excuse me, can I make a reservation? Say it with us. Excuse me, can I make a reservation? Or, excuse me, can I book a table? Can I book a table for this evening?
Yes, say it with Craig. And if you're traveling on the metro and people are listening to you, they might think you're a bit crazy, but who cares? Your English will improve. That's the main thing. Now, usually when you book a table or make a reservation, you have to say how many people are going to eat. So you might say, a table for 2, please. Or a table for 4, please, etc. A table for, and then the number of people, please. A table for 2, please.
You might be having a drink in a bar or a pub and you get hungry. So, excuse me, do you have bar snacks? A snack is something that you eat in the middle of the day or between meals, maybe a sandwich, for example. Excuse me, do you have bar snacks? Or, excuse me, do you do bar snacks?
Now, if you're in a place which isn't a tourist trap is a place which could be, for example, a restaurant, or it could be any type of place where you have to spend money. If it's a tourist trap, it means they're not going to give you good value for money because only tourists go there. The locals wouldn't go there because they know you don't get good value for money.
Like a hotel in Salamanca that you mentioned.
Oh, not the one I mentioned, yeah. Most hotels are great in Salamanca, but not that one. You might say, what do you recommend? As I said, don't do it if the restaurant is a tourist trap because they're going to recommend the most expensive thing on the menu or the worst value for money. But if it's not a tourist trap, you could say, what do you recommend?
Yeah, what wine do you recommend, or what main course do you recommend, what steak do you recommend, etc. Now, when you order something, when you ask for something from the menu, sometimes it's not clear what comes with the thing you've ordered. So what comes with the fish? Is it a salad, maybe chips, vegetables? What comes with the meat? What comes with the chicken? So that's the question. Excuse me, what does it come with? What does it come with? And another important word is allergy. To be allergic to something is to have a bad reaction when you eat certain foods. Maybe you're allergic to nuts, for example, or maybe you're allergic to chocolate, Imagine that.
Oh, Craig, you went pale at the thought of it. Craig looked really worried.
So it's important to say that you have that allergy. I'm allergic to blah, blah, blah.
Now, there's something which I often ask, but some people are a bit embarrassed. Not me. I often say, can I take this with me? That's when I've finished my meal in a restaurant, but I haven't eaten all the food, and I liked it, and I want to eat it maybe later. It's something that could be heated up or eaten cold, and I don't want to throw it away. Think of it as partly being environmentally friendly. Otherwise, it's going to be thrown away. So I will say, can I take this with me? In other words, I'm asking for a doggy bag. So in theory, in the past, people said the extra food, the leftovers, was for their dog. But they probably ate it themselves, but perhaps they really did have a dog. So we've come to call the bag where they put the extra food in as a doggy bag. So you might ask for a doggy bag by saying, can I take this with me?
And at the end of the meal, you probably know this expression, you need to ask for the bill if you are eating in the UK, or the check if you are eating in the US. So, excuse me, can we have the bill, please? Or, excuse me, can we have the check, please? Remember, all of these expressions you'll find in the show notes, inglespodcast.com/528.
And speaking of the United States, something you had better be very sure of is service included if you go to the United States? Because more than likely, you're going to have to pay service. Sometimes it's written on the bill, or the check, I should say, American English check. But sometimes it isn't written, but you still have to pay it. Sometimes it's obligatory. It's written that you must pay it. Other times it isn't strictly obligatory, but they will be very annoyed if you don't pay it.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you had any experiences with that, Craig?
I have. In America, in the US, I think it was in Chicago, where I didn't pay the required 20%. I think I offered a 10 or 15% tip, and I got a very bad look from the waiter. A disgusting look at this British tourist who didn't give me 20%. So yeah, I should have asked if the service is included, or what's the service charge is another question you could ask. Now, if you're like me, and I'm guessing like Reza, you don't always have the money. You don't have the travel budget to spend money every day, 3 times a day on meals in restaurants. What I like to do is go to the supermarket, buy some food, maybe eat it in the hotel in the evening. Something light, some bread, a bit of yogurt, something like that. So, is there a supermarket near here? Is a very useful expression. Excuse me, is there a supermarket near here?
Yes, I also do often eat food from a supermarket in my hotel room or guest house room. But it doesn't bother me because I think I'm making a few people out there happy with my podcast. I could charge them to listen, and then I could eat out all the time. I could eat fancy meals 3 times a day. But no, just like Craig, I would rather not. I would rather, listeners, that you listened to what Craig and I have to say for free. And then when we go on holiday, we will eat 1 meal in our room because we can't afford 2 out. Isn't that right, Craig?
Absolutely right. So next time you're traveling and you're using these useful expressions, please think of us in our dark, smelly, dingy, horrible hotel room eating from a can of tuna with a spoon.
Hotel room? You're lucky, Craig. I often sleep on a park bench when I'm on holiday, and then I come back to Valencia to record more podcasts for the listeners.
A park bench? Yeah. You're lucky. I dream of sleeping on a bench. Let's move on to shopping. What can we say when we're shopping, Reza, especially if the assistant in the shop comes over wants to help us. They say, excuse me, can I help you? But you just want to be alone. You just want to look at things. What can you say?
Well, you can literally say, I'm just looking. But there's another useful word. You could say, I'm just browsing.
Like browsing on the internet.
That's right. Listen up, IT freaks. Browsing existed before the computer. Yes, the word browsing, browser, to browse, wasn't invented for computing. It existed before, and it's still used. It simply means to look around, but maybe without the intention of buying anything. And that's why it's been used in the world of computing. A browser is to browse. It's to look around. You look around. So in a shop, when you say, I'm just browsing, that means I don't know if I'm going to buy anything, so you don't need to show me anything yet. I'm just browsing.
And when you are browsing, especially for clothes, sometimes you see something and you think, oh, that's nice. And you want to see if it fits you, if it's the correct size. So a very useful expression is, excuse me, can I try it on? Or can I try this on? Now, the phrasal verb to try on just means to test it, to test the clothes, to put the clothes on your body, to see if you like it, if it's the correct fit, the correct size. And it's one of those phrasal verbs that you can separate. You can put the object between the verb and the preposition. So can I try it on? Or if it's plural, can I try these on? If it's a pair of shoes, for example. Or can I try this t-shirt on? So to try on is to see if the clothes fit you.
Now, we're not going to go into too much detail about shopping vocabulary because that could be in another episode. But let's just cover a few more of the basics, the basic phrases for when you're traveling. For example, you might find something that you like, but it's the wrong color. In that case, you could say, do you have this in blue? Or do you have this in pink, for example? Or maybe the colors are right, but it's too big or too small. In that case, you could say, do you have this in a smaller size? Or do you have this in a larger size?
And before you buy it, you want to know how much money it costs. So the question is, excuse me, how much does it cost? Does it? How much does it cost? Or excuse me, how much does this cost? Or simply, excuse me, how much is it? How much is this?
Then to pay, I imagine you can use your card in most places, but it's best to check. For example, Craig, 2 days ago, I was in a bar in Spain and they wouldn't accept cards. It was the first thing they told me when we got in, no cards.
Cash only.
Yeah.
You know why, don't you?
Yeah. The official reason would be, oh, the machine's not working, but I've got a theory as to the real reason why.
The tax man.
Yeah. So it's best to check because actually establishments, that's a formal way of saying shops or bars or places where you buy things, they are not obliged to accept cards. They don't have to. You cannot say, oh no, you have to take my card, I don't have any money. No, they don't have to. They can oblige you to pay by cash. So better to check. You could say, can I pay by card? Or perhaps, do you accept credit cards? Or if you want to be a bit more specific, you could say, do you accept debit cards? Just to clarify the differences, a debit card is a bank card which takes the money directly out of your bank account. So if you don't have any money, you can't buy anything. Whereas a credit card works on credit, so you don't even need to have any money and you can still buy something, but you'll have to pay the bank later, yeah? So do you accept credit cards or perhaps even do you accept debit cards?
Would you say, can I pay with cash or by cash?
I'd accept either. I think either expression is used, but is one more correct? I think it's actually more correct to say with cash.
I would probably say with cash, but the thing with prepositions, and many students they panic about this. Oh, what preposition? Really, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake with prepositions. Prepositions are not words that carry meaning. Obviously, the difference between cash and credit card is a lot. So you need to get those right. But the preposition, if you make a mistake, it's no big deal. It's not a big problem. So I agree with Reza. I would say, can I pay by card or can I pay with cash?
Actually, I can think of a third possibility. You can also say in cash. Can I pay in cash?
Yeah.
You can't say in card, though. You can't say that. But you can say in cash, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Now, speaking of cash, you could pay by euros, dollars, or any foreign currency. But maybe the establishment, as Reza mentioned, doesn't accept the currency that you have. So that's the question. Excuse me, do you accept euros here? Or excuse me, do you accept dollars, American dollars? Or do you accept foreign currency?
And imagine they don't accept cards, as happened to me the other day. So you have to pay by cash, with cash, or in cash, but you don't have any. Well, then you'll have to go and get some. So you might have to ask them, is there a cash point near here? Or is there an ATM near here? ATM is automated telling machine. In other words, the hole in the wall, the machine where you get money out of. But let's keep it more formal by using the expressions cash point or ATM.
And just to be clear, cash point would be a more common word in the UK, in British English, and ATM would be more common in the US, in American English.
Craig, I know you've been in Norway, and I think, have you been in Sweden as well?
A long time ago now.
Oh, okay, but Norway fairly recently.
A few years.
Okay, I think it's Norway is one country where they think you're a bit odd if you try and pay in cash these days.
Many Scandinavian countries now are going cashless really quickly. China as well is going cashless really quickly. So yeah, that's the tendency. Although in Spain it's taking longer, but the general tendency is to push people to not pay with cash. And one final question with shopping on money, with cash, another useful question. Excuse me, where can I change money? Because maybe you have your currency, you need to change the currency to the local currency. Excuse me, where can I change money? We hope these have been useful for you, these expressions for travel. If you are traveling, have a wonderful, wonderful time. Stay safe and be careful, but have fun. Now it's your turn to practice your English. Why don't you tell us about the last time you traveled abroad on holiday? Did you run into any problems? To run into means to have any problems. In the hotel, while shopping, in the restaurant, did you have any problems communicating, maybe in English? Do you have any funny stories? Tell us a travel story. Try and use the vocabulary in today's podcast.
So send us a message. Why not record your voice? You can do that with SpeakPipe. There's a link in the show notes. It's speakpipe.com/English podcast. And if you use SpeakPipe, you can send us an audio of up to 90 seconds, a minute and a half. And maybe if we get a chance, we'll play your message on the podcast. And if you've got a question, we might be able to give you an answer. However, Craig, if somebody prefers to write, how can they get in touch with us?
You can reach me by email. My address is Craig, CRAIG, @inglespodcast.com. And for Reza, write to Belfast Reza, REZA, @gmail.com.
If you're a Spanish speaker and you want to study for free, you could visit the Mansión Inglés website. And also for paid ebooks and audios and for self-study, check their store, STORE, store.mansioningles.net.
And before we say goodbye this week, we'd like to say a huge thank you to all of our wonderful Patreon supporters. Patreon is a program that we use for supporting this podcast, and for as little as $1.50 per month, although you're welcome to give us more money to support our holiday and our travels, You can get instant access to the transcriptions of this podcast so that you can read every single word that we say. Go to patreon.com/Ingles podcast and join the Patreon program. We have one listener who's joined this month, Jessica Negrier. Thank you very much, Jessica, for becoming part of our Patreon. What's next week, Reza?
Next week, we're going to talk about food vocabulary, phrasal verbs that have nothing to do with food.
Well, that sounds interesting. Join us for that next week. Thank you for listening today. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.